कैसे मन के सारी बातें करने का?
राधा रानी ने मुझे लगन लगा दी। मैं खुद को बहुत सौभाग्यशाली मानता हूँ।
अभिनव सिर्फ भक्ति करता है पर स्कूल नहीं जाता।
मैं उस विद्यालय में पढ़ता हूँ जिसमें देश के सबसे बड़े योद्धा अर्जुन पढ़े हैं।
वृंदावन को ना लोगों ने एक घूमने फिरने का स्पॉट बना दिया है।
वृंदावन मौज के लिए नहीं है, वृंदावन आत्म कल्याण के लिए है।
कौन कौन है आपके फ्रेंड्स?
मेरे बेस्ट फ्रेंड तो मेरे श्री कृष्ण ही है।
कि अभिनव बड़े होके क्या बनना चाहते हो, तो क्या बनना चाहोगे?
मैंने अपने जीवन की नैया तो राधा रानी को समर्पित कर दी है। वो जो भी बनाएंगे अच्छा ही बनाएंगे।
कभी ऐसा एहसास हुआ है कि भगवान सच में आपके बहुत पास है?
मुझे हर क्षण उनके होने का अनुभव होता है।
अभिनव सिर्फ फॉलोइंग के लिए करता है, सच्ची भक्ति नहीं है। आपको उन सारी बातों को सुन के कैसा लगता है?
मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि जमाना क्या कहता है। मुझे तो ये पता है कि श्री बांके बिहारी मुझे अपना कहता है।
We are seeing something new on social media these days. Have you heard of Abhinav Arora? He is only 10 years old and yet he's become an internet sensation. He speaks about God, religion and spirituality with the conviction of someone much older. Now let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with being religious or spiritual. In fact, it can be very grounding for a lot of people. But we need to take a step back and think about what's really happening here. Abhinav is just a child. At this age, kids are supposed to be learning about the world, playing with their friends, and building the experiences that will help them understand themselves and others. The way we shape a child's environment has a massive impact on their mental, emotional, and social development. But what happens when that environment is fame, money, and the pressure to perform? Children like Abhinav are incredibly impressionable. Their minds are still developing and they rely heavily on the adults in their lives, especially their parents, to guide them. The concern here isn't about his spirituality, it's about what happens when a child is pushed into the spotlight too early, in front of millions of eyes, and in such a sensitive area like religion. Religion is deeply personal and it can also be controversial. It's one of those areas where people can easily be manipulated, intentionally or unintentionally. We see it all the time. So when a child like Abhinav becomes a figure for these kinds of discussions, we have to ask ourselves, is this really his choice? Or is he being influenced, perhaps unknowingly, by the adults around him? Now, let's not jump to conclusions. We don't know for sure what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know if Abhinav's parents are encouraging this, or if he genuinely feels connected to this path. But when you look at the way he presents himself in interviews, it's hard to ignore his father's role. It seems like there's a lot of parental influence at play here, which isn't uncommon. But should it be happening at this level and at this age? This isn't about shaming anyone, neither Abhinav nor his parents. But we do need to recognize the risks. Fame at such a young age comes with a price. And that price isn't just about lost privacy or the constant pressure to perform. It's also about what happens to a child's mental health in the long run. Let's consider what happens in the brain of a 10-year-old. At this age, their brain is still forming key connections. learning how to regulate emotions, deal with social situations, and build their identity. They're still figuring out who they are and how they fit into the world. Now imagine being in that stage of life and having millions of strangers watching your every move, commenting on everything you do. How does that affect someone? Look at social media. Abhinav has accounts where he shares his journey. But there's a major issue here. It's illegal for someone his age to have an Instagram account. Social media platforms like Instagram require users to be at least 13 years old for a reason. And yet, Abhinav is already engaging with these platforms. This is a concern because social media can be incredibly toxic, especially for children who are still developing emotionally. And what about the comments? People love him, but we have also seen a lot of comments from netizens focusing on one major issue: his education. Many are worried about the fact that he is missing school. Is he missing out on learning critical subjects? Is he missing out on playing with friends and experiencing normal social interactions? This brings us to another important topic. Children need to spend time with their peers. It's through these interactions that they develop social maturity, emotional intelligence, and the ability to handle conflict. But what happens when a child like Abhinav spends most of his time around adults? What happens when his world is all about religion, fame, and followers instead of school, playtime, and friendships? We have seen this pattern before. When kids grow up too fast, they often struggle to connect with others their age. In Abhinav's case, he already speaks like an adult in his interviews. He talks about concepts most 10-year-olds probably wouldn't even think about. While that might seem impressive now, it could create challenges for him later. He may have difficulty fitting in with kids his age, which could lead to isolation or worse, bullying. The long-term impact of this can be severe. When children lose out on important experiences during their childhood, they often feel the effects well into adulthood. And while we can't predict the future, we do need to think about what Abhinav might feel in a few years when he looks back. Will he regret missing out on a normal childhood? Will he blame his parents for pushing him into the spotlight too soon? These are difficult questions, but they are important ones. Parenting is never easy, and it's impossible to make the right decision all the time. But when fame, money, and public attention come into play, the stakes are even higher. It's not just about the here and now. It's about the long-term consequences on a child's mental health and well-being. At the end of the day, childhood is precious. It's the foundation on which everything else is built. So, before we let children become the faces of brands, religions, or social movements, we need to pause and ask ourselves, are we letting them be kids? Are we giving them the space they need to grow, to learn, and to enjoy their childhood while they still can? Abhinav's journey is just beginning, but we should all be mindful of the path he is on and what that means for his future. Thank you.